I have a $3.2 million listing. You know where that came from? I had Mike come with me and we show up to the appointment.
Welcome back to the Better Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Lavik, and we are talking about your real estate business and how to get better and better. This is the Better Agent Podcast, and that's what I'm all about. That's what hopefully our listeners are about, is getting better and improving their businesses, improving their lives, and having better quality of life, better relationships, better families, better quality of life overall. So that's what I'm all about, and I want to continue on that growth path and that journey of just constant and never-ending improvement. So excited to share with you some of our another colleague actually we're at the same brokerage. So our guest today is Griffin Dobson. He's also a part of EXP Realty. So we're also at the same brokerage. We're at different teams, so we have kind of different functions in our day-to-day operations and that type of thing. But Griffin's got a great story, and I love that he's a little bit younger than I am, right? I'm not going to spoil it all, but I mean, I'm in my 40s. Okay. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, which feels like forever, but Griffin is in his 20s. Okay. And I remember being in this business in my 20s, but it's, he's got a little bit different pathway. So, without further ado, I won't share too much more, but I'll let Griffin introduce himself and share a little bit more about your story and where you're at, your background, and kind of where you're at today.
Sure. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been full-time in real estate now. This is my 6th full year. So I started in 2020, right around the pandemic times, actually. So I've been on a team this whole time. Started out with Mike Koch here at Terra Firma Realty. I'm still on the team today. Before that, I graduated high school in 2018, so I didn't have much of a tenure of anything before that. But I did manage a gym that I actually trained at throughout high school, and that's kind of where actually I learned about real estate and actually met Mike, and that's ultimately what got me into the business. And then I got ordered my books for the real estate, exam and all that kind of stuff on my birthday, which is March 10th, 2020. And 3 days later, the world shut down and the gym shut down completely. So I basically was just kind of shadowing and kind of just watching what people do here at the office, obviously before I could do anything being licensed. And then once the state opened back up in, I think June or July, I got my test done, got my credentials, and then officially started on the team. So it's been a fun journey. It's hard to believe it's been actually 6 years now that I'm saying that out loud.
And then, gyms, they were probably some of the hardest hit. I mean, there was gyms going out of business left and right, I feel like, during COVID, right? Nobody can't be near anybody and working out with a mask on. Can you,
Yeah, it's not fun.
time. I mean, I remember those days for sure. So, but why real estate? So you said you were working out with Mike, who he's also a realtor and team leader and that type of thing. So what was it about, I guess, real estate that you thought, yeah, maybe I could do this? What was it in your mind that you're like, yeah, this could be a good pathway for me? How did you reach that conclusion?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so I started learning early in high school. I was really interested in investing in just personal development, and I don't really know what got me into it. I would have to say though, probably bodybuilding, because I started bodybuilding when I was 14. Did my first show when I was 16. So I think just living that lifestyle, obviously is very different than normal, society lifestyle, but especially as a high schooler. So I just started learning more about how I can develop and grow as a person, and that led into finances and investing. And that's where I learned about real estate. So I was more or less interested in it from what my perception of it was, of like, I talked to a couple of people who were developers, a couple of people who owned brokerages, but didn't really have any like day in the life experience. And then when I was training and managing the gym, I actually, one of the members of the gym was an agent on the team here. And so he would be like, he'd come in at like 3 o'clock to work out. And then the next day he'd be in at 11. And I'd be like, don't you have a job? And he's like, oh no, yesterday I had appointments in the afternoon. So I was in during the day. And, we started talking more and more about that. Pretty much every time he came in, he was kind of an open book, just, kind of gave me the lowdown on all the good, bad, the ugly, everything. And it just seemed really interesting to me knowing that, your level of effort is rewarded very highly in real estate. Where at like the gym, I could get all my stuff knocked out. I could do all the cleaning. I could go above and beyond, and I'd be done in 2 hours, but I'm still stuck there and I'm not getting paid any more or less, right? So
Yeah.
it just seemed a lot more intriguing to me that I could leverage my kind of my gumption and motivation to not only continue to grow and develop as a person, because you're dealing with people, you're communicating, like you're dealing with very highly stressful situations. So I saw it as an opportunity there. And I just didn't see myself living in a, perfect box of like, hey, this is what I know I'm bringing in each month. I know I get these vacation days and I live within that. I more or less want to be able to stretch myself and see how much I could grow and how many different things I could, try to shoot for. Um,
Yeah.
so
I love the analogy if you think about it, right? Like you
um,
in bodybuilding, right? You're stressing your muscles to failure, right? You're going to that ultimate level, but really that's what you need to do in order to grow and to get to that next level and to get, that perfect physique or whatever it might be. And I think,
yeah,
real estate, the business is very similar, right? I mean, if you're looking to really achieve at a high level, I mean, you need to stretch your communication skills in ways that maybe you haven't before, right? Like you have to have hard conversations. You have to reach out to multiple different types of people. You have to, get better at some of those types of skills that in different ways. And it's interesting though, right? Like the more consistent you are in your daily routine of working out, the more you'll see those physical attributes will grow, and the more consistent you are in your daily prospecting or activities or finding new business and following up with business, right? The more
yep,
the more business tends to just keep happening, right?
yeah,
I love that analogy. So that's pretty interesting. So is that
yeah.
how, I mean, and have you experienced that same kind of consistency approach?
Yeah, I think for a long time, I mean, granted, like I'm sure we'll go through it, but like the first, 2 years of being in business was very different than when the interest rates changed in 2022. That rush of like, hey, free money essentially, and
Yeah.
prices are appreciating. That changed the game, right? So that changes your schedule and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Like you can't coast by of just basically you answer the phone and you can get people in properties like you're doing business, right? So
You're one of 6 or 10 offers, right? I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you still got to win, right? You can get
Yeah.
them in the
Yeah.
house, but you still got to win. But yeah, I
Yep.
think that definitely helped a lot. And there's so many parallels to not only business and real estate with bodybuilding, but it's like every day is a reset, right? Like you don't go to the gym for 6 months straight and you're in great shape, and then you just stop doing those activities, right? Then you regress. And I look at real estate the same way, even if I have and it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, like there's been times where I've had a really good couple months and then you start to coast a little bit. And then, your pending board goes down, you start closing those out. Now you got to
Yep.
rebuild it. And then it's like, you feel like you're back at square one. So I've tried,
Yeah.
tried a lot better this year to just be like, the results are gone by the end of the day. And I just need to continue, creating relationships, following up, prospecting, and just let the pending board do its thing. And just, it's so much easier to just let it all be consumed by it instead of like,
Yeah.
yeah, I did my quota. I can chill for this weekend. Like I'm just always in the same roller coaster. And I didn't like it. So
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think you do? I'm curious, and I think our listeners probably are experience the similar things, right? Like it's easy to kind of get wrapped up in just the next transaction, right? I mean, if
mm,
you have a deal going, it can consume a lot of your energy, and you can put all your focus on it, and yet as soon as it closes, you're unemployed. So now you got
yeah,
to find the next deal. So
yeah,
the real struggle sometimes is right finding that balance between obviously doing good customer service and servicing the clients you have, but also still generating and finding new business every single day. And how do you balance that, or how do you maintain that level of consistency? So I think and if you want to think about it for a moment, I know for me, one of the things that I've done for years is really just think about, and I went to this is actually one of the things that we do, and I put together like a 21-day sort of training module or whatever. And one of the things that we do is put together sort of an ideal schedule. And
yep,
it's not etched in stone, but it's, if I can get 80% of the way there, then that's a win, right? How do I
yep,
how do I create my ideal schedule? And I can tell you, for me anyway, the more times than not, if I am able to hit that sort of weekly, daily routine, ideal schedule, then man, consistent business just keeps showing up just
Yeah.
day after day after day. And it's unbelievable to me. The more consistent I am, the more business is just consistent. So it's interesting. Just that one exercise of like just writing out an ideal schedule. What time do you wake up? What time do you have breakfast? What time do you get your kids to school? What time do you get into the office, right? What time do you do your prospecting, your lead gen time? What time do you go on appointments? When is an ideal time to take appointments? How many appointments can you take in a day, right? Just thinking through some of those things and writing it out, I think is a very important skill that I've done. I know, and and we train a lot of our agents to do the same thing when they join us. But what about for you? What do you think are some of those key things that kind of help keep you on track and on target for consistency and that type of thing?
Yeah. I think, I mean, to start off, right, like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm on a team, so there's so much leverage there, which is awesome. I mean, we have our database that has its own built-in integrations for follow-up, right? I can schedule all my follow-ups. I have like my ABC board that, my people I talk to every week, every 2 weeks, monthly and quarterly, those pop up, as they come through, like, hey, you haven't talked to this A lead in 7 days. Now they're on your list, right? So those things kind of mitigate the human aspect of like, hey, today happened and I wasn't expecting all these external things, which happen every day. So have the expectation that it's going to be a perfect day is just, you know, not realistic for anybody. But those things help a lot. And then obviously being on a team, we have Christine, who's our client care coordinator. So she's handling all the back end stuff with title, scheduling stuff, reaching out to the lenders, appraisers, inspectors, all those things. And then I'm really only needed for negotiations, extensions, review title work, stuff like that. So I think that's a huge part of it to just start to be able to maintain a big pending board. And, if you're taking listings, stuff like that has been huge for me because that allows me to just focus on like during the day, I'm doing my prospecting, I'm doing my follow-ups, I'm staying on top of my daily task list, my contact list. And then if there's stuff like, and it may be a detriment, it may not be for some people, but like I'm 26, so like I don't have kids. I have 3 dogs, which is, I love them. But, we also have like my future father-in-law, he's 80, he lives with us. So like he'll take care of the dogs and let them out, feed them lunch and stuff. So I can pretty much work whenever. And I do use that as leverage a lot because that is a big thing in this business is being able to be, have a sense of urgency and get things done and not wait on things because there's always another person who can do the task. Maybe not as well as some people think they can, but the market moves, you got to move. So I think that's also been huge for me is just having that ability and flexibility. And then I'll take like the stuff that's not going to be like prospecting or follow-ups. And I'll do that stuff like in the evening or early in the morning, like checking my searches. If I need to like do a profile sheet because I just sent out a listing and I got to kick it over to my support team in the morning. Like I'll do all that stuff when it's not going to impact when people are picking up the phone and talking about real estate with me. And then when I'm on the road too, like I think that's another thing I didn't do for a long time. I kind of shot myself in the foot. But if I was out on appointments all day, I kind of look at it as like, damn, that's kind of a waste of the day. But now I'm using those opportunities. Obviously, like if I got a 45-minute drive to a showing, like I've got a call list of 5 to 10 people I'm calling. And, we have our database records everything, it transcripts everything, summarizes it. So it also allows me to take those calls and not be worried about missing information, right? So I can go back at night and plug extra notes or update their search or whatever it may be. Um, so yeah, I have like my perfect schedule lined up, but
Yeah.
like you said, if I can get 60% of the way there, even I'm happy.
Yeah.
And that's, as long as I'm getting my tasks done, that's, I'm sure as
Well, we
you
got to
know,
shoot for at least
obviously,
70. That's a C, right? So, I
yeah,
mean, if we can get at least
yeah,
70%.
I got to do a little bit better, but
Yeah, a little bit.
but at the same time, if,
Yeah.
if people are needing to move and they're reaching out to you, like I look at that as not only an opportunity to do business, but if somebody's taking time out of their day to reach out to you, and if it's, somebody who you haven't, bulldogged in the database 15 times, and they're genuinely reaching out because they're like, hey, I really like what Josh is doing. I see him on Facebook. He's a great guy. I want to work with him. Like, I'd feel like I would feel internally upset at myself if I was just like, I could wait till tomorrow, because what does that mean for for that
Yeah.
person reaching out to you, right? So I don't have as much balance in my life as I'm sure some people want to have, but that's also okay with me at the stage of life where I'm at, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, there's certainly an asset there in terms of your commitments, right? I mean, I have 3 little kids right now, and I'm a little older, and so I do have different time constraints
Yeah.
and commitments in
Yep.
that regard, right, than if I just had 3 dogs, but it's I think what's interesting too is, you mentioned something that I think is super important, and I know we've talked about it on previous episodes, but it's just having a database, right? And,
Yep.
it surprises me that I've talked to a number of agents over the years, and some are pretty good about, building and staying in touch with their database, and some aren't. And I think the ones that I know that are hyper committed and focused to staying in touch with their people and building their database, they consistently outperform most other agents. And I've seen it at all different companies. I've been at 3 different companies in my career. And I've seen it, I've experienced it. And I think that, if there's lots of good systems out there that, I don't think telling you which system to choose is important, but there's, some of the things you said, you have your A, B, and C clients, right? There's automations built in and it pulls up your list of people you should call. And you've automatically got a list of 5 to 10 people. Like, I already know that the modern database systems, all of them do those features.
Yeah.
Pull your list, right? Filter your
Yep.
leads, get your list of people, update it, and consistently stay in touch with it. And then also just not wasting your time, right? If you're on your way to a showing, that is not just a time to just stare at the road, right?
Yeah.
You can be on the phone. You can be multitasking a little bit, right? You can be on the phone, making a call, staying in touch with those people. I think that's a huge key thing rather than just wasting that time. I know I've
Yeah.
saw some of the things too we've tried to do just in terms of social media. I know you mentioned it too, right? Like if someone sees you on Facebook or whatever and they reach out and they feel connected to you or whatever, but trying to even post on your social media while you're like already doing something you're going to go there for anyway. If you're already going on a
Yeah.
showing, you're going, right? Show up a couple minutes early and that's when you can do your social post. Like if you wanted to, right? Like find
Yeah.
ways to do just these few little tweaks here and there, I think can really go a long way. So that's great. I love that. So yeah, the other thing too, you mentioned that I think is important, right? Is kind of you having a team, right? You said you have a transaction coordinator, client care person. And, I heard long ago that if you don't have an assistant, you are one, right? And at the end of the
Yeah.
day, maybe you do still have some administrative tasks, setting up searches or whatever that maybe your client care person doesn't do, but you do those, late after hours. But I think finding some administrative help is essential to grow. So if you're an agent out there and you're struggling to grow and you're thinking that, well, nobody can do it as good as me and I need to just be control. I'm a control freak. I have to have control of the entire process, right? I get it. I get it. I'm part control freak too and I want things a certain way, but even if I can hand something off and it's done pretty good, like that's a win. That's a total win. And I know for me, before I even built a team, I hired a part-time, per transaction person. He helped me per file, right? So paid per closing, and it was relatively low risk. So if you're, maybe you're not doing a ton of deals yet, but you maybe want some leverage, that I would strongly consider doing something like that, or even hiring a virtual assistant. Sometimes you can do those at relatively low cost and just try it out, and see what works and what doesn't. But having some administrative help is absolutely essential, I think. So that's for sure. Well, cool. Well, let's shift gears maybe. How about so you made it past 5 years, which is sort of a big
Yeah.
milestone in real estate, right? A lot of agents fall out after, they don't make it past year 5, or if they do make it past year 5, then like you kind of made it in some ways. So that's awesome. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. What about, I mean, some of those times, right? I mean, like maybe, share if you wouldn't mind, or if you think of a time that was maybe a challenging time, right? I know you mentioned
Yeah.
like after COVID, right? Things changed, right? I wasn't able to get 3% interest rates anymore. Now I got to reinvent my business or figure out how to find business. What about you? What is there a different moment that comes up for you that was like, kind of a struggle and maybe you thought about giving up or quitting or who knows what, if is there something that comes up for you that you could share with the audience?
Yeah. Maybe probably spend an hour on that one. But, I think so. I was working pretty much all buyers from 2020 until 2022. And then, I'd passed, the certain metrics needed on our team to start taking listings, outside of like SOI or top 50 or past clients. So in the fall of 2022, I started really hitting the ground running, trying to get listings. So, I mean, I was doing circle prospecting. I was, circle prospecting neighborhoods. We do a lot of lake business, waterfront specialist team. So like I was circle prospecting lakes. I ended up, I think in 2023, made close to 40,000 dials. Now, a lot of those were obviously on a dialer, right? But that's how I started building
Over
my
what time frame?
audience.
40,000 dials in a
In
year?
a year. Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot, but that's how I was building my business, right? So I was still taking team generated stuff, still working my own SOI top 50, but like I wasn't a super sociable person to begin with, right? And a lot of people at the age of 20 are not going out and buying houses anyways. And you're still at that awkward age where like, yeah, I'm going out and partying on the weekends. Mom and dad, you should buy a house with my buddy Griffin, who's the same age, right? Like, they don't see the same value there, right? So that was kind of a rough stretch because I did have a really good first full year and that 2021 year. And then I kind of like, cut ties and restarted my database again. Um, and then I think after that, it was kind of a slow, steady climb back to where I was. Again, it was the COVID market, so I really don't count that anyways. But then I think another really tough spot, and I'm sure we'll dive into
Wait,
this a little bit more.
can you rewind a minute? Because I'm just doing the
Yeah,
math on 40,000 dials in a year. That's
yeah,
769 dials a week. How do
yeah,
you get 769 people to call?
yeah. So we used Vortex or RedX. I think it's
Okay.
more or less the same. I think Vortex is the dialer. But yeah, I would, and this was also before, right? Like things have changed where you can't, people are on a DNC list now. You can't reach out to them, like all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I was just circle prospecting, all the lakes that we work in South Central Wisconsin here.
Okay.
Anytime we have an open house, I'd call the nearest 200 houses and, let them know about the open house, see if they're interested in stopping by, try to, build some sort of seller lead gen out of that. So it was pretty
Did it
much,
work? I mean, did you get success from that or what? Sure.
yeah, long term, long term. Like I got a couple listings right away of just vacant properties, vacant lots where they're like, hey, we've had it for 20 years. We don't really know what the market is, but it's a lot more than we paid. We'll throw it up. Sure. And then it really started to come to fruition, I'd say last year in 2025, where I ended up picking up a client through that circle prospecting 2022, but he didn't actively do anything until 2025, where he's an investor and had 35 properties. And now we've slowly been unloading those. So I think we sold 8 of them last year and 4 so far this year. And then I had a $1.4 million sale last year as well, who was a guy who I originally talked to in 22, sold his lot. And he was like, dude, we had this thing listed for 3 years with another brokerage. I never got a single call, never knew what was going on. Like, you got me a cash offer within 60 days. And then, oddly enough, right, to take care of people, 2 years later when they were ready to sell their $1.4 million house.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So I think so that's a testament for those agents that might be listening and in the trenches, right? You're
Yeah.
grinding, you're focused, you're trying to find it. It's not working. It's not working. It's not working. And if you just keep going,
Yeah.
eventually it's boom, you're 3 and it just pops. Now we got 30 properties to sell. Holy cow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think when I get super stressed out, which, obviously happens, right? Doesn't matter where you are in business. Like I'm sure there are people 10 steps above me that think they want to quit, 3 days a month, right? Sure, you can attest to that. But
I've thought
one
about
thing,
quitting in this business multiple times. And I just
yeah,
got to, every time I think about it, it's like, all right, just keep going. Just keep
yeah,
going. Just got to
yeah,
keep going. And all of a sudden I do. And business just keeps showing up. And so that's, at least for me, that's what's worked. And, especially I feel like comes every January, February. It's like, okay,
yeah,
it's kind of slowing down a little bit, but guess what? It's seasonal in Wisconsin. People, right? There is seasonality in our markets, and we just got to take a breath and just keep going and save for those quiet times and be ready for it. So,
yeah.
but yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. But yeah, I think the one thing that really helps me because I am pretty ambitious, and so sometimes that thing called patience is not on my side. getting better at it, but sometimes, I expect to be further ahead than where I am. I think like most people, but I always look at it kind of like bodybuilding. Like I started doing this when I was 14. I'm 26 now. I know I won't be to the level I want to be at until I'm in my 30s, possibly late 30s, but I love doing it and I love the process. So it's like, I don't look at it as like, okay, in the next 6 months, I'm going to be where I want to be. Otherwise, I'm going to be upset. It's just like, hey, I just got to keep chopping wood, carry water every day. And then in 10 years, I'll be, probably really happy with where I'm at. Right. So I kind of look at real estate the same way that like, hey, maybe these next 60 days aren't going well for somebody, but there's another, 305 days in the year, and there's another 5, 10, 15 years of your career. So like, just keep showing up and don't get too stuck in the short
Yeah.
term. Cause I'd always do that. And then it'd be like, and I'm sure, obviously you're pretty developed dude. You'd understand this too. Like if you think about the 30 days and how rough it is, then all of a sudden, like everything is just, you know, puts you on a downward spiral. And then you're almost looking for things to go wrong as like more of a, like, yep, there we go. Prove my point. Right. So if I can get out of that and just focus on 5, 10 years down the line, you don't really get worried about one bad phone call because in 10 years that won't matter, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's a good approach, and it's definitely something I would agree with. Right, is taking that long term approach. It's not just the next 30 days or 60 days. It's really the next 3 to 6 years. Right,
Yeah.
like you're committed to this business. You got to be committed for years, right? Because the business that compounds and those relationships, they take years sometimes to develop, and people don't move until they're ready. They're going to move on their timeline, not yours. They could care
Yeah.
less about your timeline. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have a closing coming up next week, and they were past clients 6 years ago,
Yeah.
and they're upgrading to a larger home, but they weren't planning on it. There was just this other home they happened to see, and they were maybe thinking about a move in another year or two, right? And
Yeah.
suddenly things just kind of happened, and now they're moving, right? So I think it's putting enough of those people in your pipeline, in your database, in your world, whether it's circle prospecting or open houses or door knocking or networking or meetings or groups or whatever it is. I think it's putting those people into a systematic database and staying in touch with them over time and building the database. That's this business.
Yeah.
And just falling in love with that process and just being like, okay, I'm doing my reps. Here we go. Right? We're doing
Yeah.
our reps. We gotta do the warm up, and here we go. This is how it goes. That's how it happens, right? And
Yeah.
and just be patient, and it'll keep coming. That's for sure. So I love that. Yeah, man, we've hit lots of good points, right? If you don't rely on your team, right? If you have a team, it's helpful, or if not, find a transaction coordinator, client care person, build your database, right? ABC clients, right? Categorize your people, stay in
Yeah.
touch with calls while you're out on showings, not just doing the showings on a 45-minute drive or something like that, right? Especially if it's further away. I mean, yeah, pay attention, right? I think you were in the gym, you were a manager in the gym, and you were just paying attention to the people around you and listening to them and talking to them. And I think business, real estate is the same way, right? Like part of it is just having your ears open, being open to those conversations, reaching out, and I think that can be a big thing as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what else. Anything else that you think our listeners might find some value out of, or anything else that you think we haven't talked about that would be interesting for us to explore?
I mean, I think touching on the team stuff might be important too. Like and that kind of like team SOI, all that kind of stuff. I think it all kind of tailors into one thing. But one thing I can say for me is starting very young. I've like I said, I've only been on a team, right? So like what I know is like my perspective, and like when you talk about a database and stuff, like to me that's just normal. But
Yeah,
like you said, you talk to a lot more people than I do. Like, a lot of people probably just have a spreadsheet or maybe a sticky note on
yeah,
their desk with 5 people, and that's their entire business plan, right? So I feel like I'm pretty lucky in a lot of those ways. But that is a question I get asked quite a bit from people who are either trying to get in real estate or like who are around my age who maybe are solo agents of like, hey, should I be on a team? Should I not? And I think for me, like I've always kind of looked at everything as like you're paying your tuition to life. with experience or by paying an actual fee, right? So like to me, if I'm going to join a team, or I am on a team, but like if I were somebody looking at this, like I'd want to know what that team provides for me. Like I'm very lucky to have somebody like Mike and Chris to learn from. Like they've been in the business, they're very knowledgeable, and I've learned so much more about business, personal development, personal finances, investing from being associated with them and connected with, some pretty powerful people through them. And I think if you're on a team, like that's what you want to have out of a leader, is somebody who can offset the fact that, like, hey, you don't have your name on the sign and you're not getting everything and your ego is a little bit hurt, but you're leveraging yourself to build more relationships and skill set. And then the other thing too is like, right, like this year I've got 18 closed, I've got 6 pending right now, and I've got another 15 listings active on the market for another 8 million bucks. I couldn't do that on my own. I mean, I probably could, but like I probably would
You'd
have
be working
zero gigs.
24/7. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that. So like I have that leverage, and a lot of those people came from either the branding or other listings that we have in the ground where they're signing up on our website, or floor calls, calling the office, calling our sign rider stuff. Like the icing on the cake for me is to be able to leverage that and then use that for my SOI, my top 50 people that want to work with me because they know me. So I think that's just something, like if you're going to be on a team, like you got to take advantage of those opportunities. You can't run your business as a solo agent
Mhm.
and expect to control everything and then not take advantage of the team generated stuff, or like, hey, I'm the broker owner, somebody's got a buyer for me, I need a buyer agent to work on. Like, here you go, buddy. Like you gotta either be willing to commit to everything that the team requires and leverage that, or it's probably not worth it for you, right? Because you could be a sole agent, do 6 7 deals a year, and you know keep all your money or whatever your split with your brokerage is. So I do think that's important, because that's something I know personally I wouldn't be where I'm at without that. And I've gotten the majority of my book of business because I'm younger and I don't do a lot of, I'm not really out and about outside of the gym and being at the office and being on appointments. Like I'm not networking a whole lot, right? So that allows me to do the thing I want to do, which is the gym and connect with those people. But I can, fall back and go in the database and, like I have a $3.2 million listing. You know where that came from? Floor call. I answered the phone. Obviously, right, you have to have the skill set,
Yeah,
knowledge base,
totally.
but answer that call, talk to him, qualified him, got his information, set the appointment, had Mike come with me, and we show up to the appointment. And again, because of the branding, right? We had sold his neighbor's house on the lake. He knew a couple other people that we've helped. Like we made all that connection. We showed up to do a valuation walkthrough and brought a pre-listing packet. So not our full, shebang, but just like an overview. We left that appointment without opening that book with a verbal on a listing. And the next day we had signed paperwork, and now we're active on the market at $3.2 million. That wasn't a result of Griffin, right? That was a result of Griffin doing the actions needed to be part of the team, but the team's branding that generated that activity and that comfort to be like, hey, I'm calling you guys to list my house. When can you come do this? And so I think that's important, right? Like a lot of people miss
Yeah,
that.
I think that's an interesting topic. I think it's easy, right? Because it's one of the things you said, right? Is you're fully bought into the team and the team concept, and and what the team can provide, and the branding, and some of these opportunities of working together, right? And yeah, there's a cost to that, but you're going to pay the cost one way or the other, right? If you're a solo independent agent, right, you maybe don't do as many transactions, so it costs you X number of transactions plus future business plus just that leveraged people of skills, right? You bringing in a more experienced agent, you having that transaction care client coordinator, right? Like you're getting a bigger opportunity by being in that team-based environment. And so, and I totally get it, right? Some people aren't all about it, but I think for the agents that maybe want to build a team or want to try to create it, I think it's getting people with a similar mindset that believe that the team concept is a better way to go about it. And if you don't believe that, well, then don't build a team and don't be on a team, right? But if you do believe that, then then building a team-based business, I think, is a great approach. I think it can be beneficial both for the agents and the team leader and the client care coordinators and the clients. I mean, at the end of the day, how can we create a better client experience because we work together as a team versus just one person handling everything, you know? So I don't know. I'm a big believer in the team concept. I think to me, it's one of the only ways to have true leverage in this business, right? I think it's very easy to work 7 days a week, right? And just get consumed by too many, whatever, the next client appointment or the next thing, or, now I'm setting up searches late at night, plus I'm doing everything. And I'm not like, if you do it all on your own, I think the burnout factor is high. And that's why I don't want to do it. So, but I think it's interesting to think about, right? Like, you have to have people that are on the team that want to be there and believe that that's the right place to be there, and they're gonna contribute to it and take from it, and it's give and take both ways, right? Like, it's building it up together in a way that just creates a better business opportunity. So I love that you brought that up. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, like, there's not a right or wrong approach to anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
I just know for me personally, I, I enjoy I enjoy being at my house with my dogs and my fiance and not doing anything else or going to the gym. So, like, for me to be a solo agent, I know that's what that would take, is for me to spend more time generating that sort of activity through networking, where it's a lot easier for me to pick up the phone and call random strangers, as dumb as that sounds. But again, I look at that as like, okay, if I can figure out how to talk to people that don't know me, don't like me, don't trust me, don't know I'm calling, don't want to talk to me, like, it allows me to be a better communicator and allows me to, like, when a $3.2 million opportunity calls my phone and I answer it, that I'm not a bumbling idiot who's never picked up the phone before. And now right away, it's like, ooh, this is the person, this is the guy or gal or whatever, like, that's going to list my $3 million house. And they answer the phone saying, yo, it's Griff. What do you want? Right. Like, it's, so I've always just looked at everything that way. Like, I get so much
Yeah.
more volume out of that. And
Yeah.
it's allowed me to spool up not only my business, like you said, right? Like,
Yep.
I have, now 40 deals in the works this year. If I was
Yeah.
solo and I had 4, I'm already 10 times further ahead from an experience standpoint, as well
Totally.
as a referral standpoint, right? Like, I have first time home buyers that I sold their parents a house 5 years ago. It was actually one of my first big sales. And then we listed their house and sold that after they bought this one. And then they reached out to me 2 weeks ago and said, hey, I'm so and so sent me your name and we're looking for a house. And now within 2 weeks, they're under contract on a house, and they're raving fans, right? So, like, you just get more volume and more ability to kind of grow as a person, I think. And that's ultimately, to me, that's what's important to me. Now, again, there's a lot of people that want to do everything as easy as possible and talk to as little people as possible and make as much money. And I'm sure that'll maybe not work out for them. But if you kind of change your mindset, like, just each opportunity is a way to connect and grow, like, then you're not worried about picking up the phone. You're not worried about making calls. You're not worried about the outbound activity, which ultimately leads to the business. You're looking at it as a game of, like, how can I be better? Not, okay, I set 3 appointments this week, I can just be done because that's my quota and it's Tuesday, right? Like, that won't serve you. And then you'll be always in a roller coaster and you've never broken that ceiling that you can.
Yeah, for sure. Well, very cool, man. I think I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I think we hit on lots of great points. And I think, just getting some of those core attributes, right, of consistency, dedication, right, similar to like working out or, that kind of thing, I think is a great metaphor and an analogy. And I think, I've really enjoyed this conversation. So, well, unless you had anything else, that's our episode for today on the Better Agent Podcast. Tune in next time as we continue to explore this topic of getting better and better and improving your business and getting things going. So thanks, Griffin Dobson, for being on the show, and tune in next time as we continue to further this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks for tuning in to the Better Agent Podcast. I hope you found today's insights valuable. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned for more tips, Q&A sessions, and sneak peeks into our 21-day challenge. To get full access of our show notes and more details on the 21-day challenge, go to abetterrealestateexperience.com. Keep striving for greatness, and I'll see you on the next episode.